I know to some of you this may sound really quite geeky, but I absolutely love a good font. Fonts and typefaces in general have always fascinated me. Seeing a beautiful looking font or using the right font in the right situation, really nice looking titles. It's always just fascinated me. I love it. And today I want to just talk to you about the difference between tracking and kerning. They are two different things, though they both do relate to the amount of space between characters or glyphs. And let's deal with tracking first, because it's the most simple to explain. Tracking, or otherwise known as letter spacing, sometimes referred to as letter spacing, sometimes tracking and kerning all get put under the umbrella term of letter spacing, but I think that's technically incorrect. I think really tracking and letter spacing are the same thing. Tracking is just talking about the spacing between all your characters. If you adjust your tracking, you change the space between all your characters and your punctuation equally. If you were to do that on, say, a bunch of text, like a paragraph of text, it would just look stupid. It would look really confusing to read and would look a complete mess if you put too much space between your characters. A slight increase in tracking can improve readability, and it can just make things just look a little bit more easy on the eye. Where it's mainly used, I would say, is just where you've got a couple of words, maybe 3 or 4 words at the most. So a title, maybe the credits of a film. You see fairly large tracking values used in that case, because when you see just 2 or 3 words, you can easily understand that, and it doesn't cause any problems. But you would never use big tracking values on on a large amount of text. So tracking, it's the space between characters, but it's all characters. So if you increase it by 40, you are changing the space between all characters equally. Kerning, or to kern, is a different thing. It's talking specifically about the space between a pair of characters, and that's very different, because if you look at typefaces, you'll see that they aren't spaced equally. It kind of might look like they are initially, and there are certain typefaces where the kerning between the characters differs less from character to character. But let's take the typical example of an A and a V, and that's the example that's used in a lot of software. You'll see that the kerning option is in fact shown by an A and a V. Let's take a look at that in practice. In InDesign here, we have the word avenue written out in the Nexa font. And if we look between the letters A and V, if I drop the cursor there, you can see the cursor is perfectly aligned with the starting point of the letter V. But as we drop down, it massively overlaps the letter A here. Therefore, at the top here, you can see that it has a kerning value of -91. And as I scroll to the other characters, they also have negative values, but much, much lower than the A and the V. And as I discussed there, you can change these individually, character by character. And if I put this value up to the same value as the others, so round about, let's say there, so -11, you see that it just almost looks like a space. It's almost a large enough gap to be a space, and it looks like it says avenue rather than avenue. So kerning is really, really important, and this demonstrates why. You have to remember that all this stuff relates back to when this was done manually. But if you think about kerning, how do you do that? If you've got a fixed character that you lay out, and then suddenly somebody's written the word avenue and you've got an A and a V next to each other, you then have to adjust the kerning for just those 2 characters, on those metal characters, for just those 2 characters. So you have to physically remove some of the metal to be able to move it closer to the A. You move the V closer to the A, but only in the situation when the A and the V are together, not when it's next to maybe another character. That is absolutely immense. I mean, the work that must have gone in to getting kerning correct when you're dealing with individual characters and the days of print, not the days of digital. is just incredible. Nowadays, when you have a typeface, the kerning for the individual characters is programmed into the typeface. It's part of the typeface, and programs that read it correctly and deal with it correctly, which is pretty much everything now, will respect that kerning. When you did it by hand, can you imagine what a massive job that must have been? I mean, absolute respect to the people who did that and still do it today, maybe. I mean, something just to add on that note is that, on that point, is that when mass sort of media came around, when newspapers and whatever came about, where printing had to be done in huge amounts and there were massive amounts of text, the fonts that were created to do that, the typefaces that were created to do that, were specifically chosen and designed because they had minimal amounts of kerning required when letters were changed. So the sort of the A's and the V's together, or they would have done it in such a way using the relevant case and what have you, so that they wouldn't have to change the kerning that much between characters. It's a fascinating subject, and I'm just really touching the surface of it there, but hopefully that gives you an understanding between the difference between tracking and kerning. They are two different things, and I think really the main points to take away: tracking deals with the space between all letters, kerning deals with the space between a pair of letters. Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then give me a thumbs up or something, and if I've got anything wrong, put it down in the comments. If there's something you'd like to add to expand on this, stick it in the comments. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.